Jump in. So we are on day 2. The topic today is pitfalls. So you're stinking thinking, right? You're stinking thinking and how it is hindering you with your relationship with food and health and weight loss and calm and peace and all of that. Like the whole body is connected. And so we kind of touched on that yesterday, right? We talked about how important the mind is when it comes to our eating habits and with our food, and how that ends up affecting the rest of our body. And so we're gonna touch a little bit more into that. I'm gonna try to sprinkle in the science a little bit at a time each day instead of doing like a full science lesson with you guys. And so I'm gonna kind of tinkle it in. That was not the word I was looking for. You gotta laugh at that one. Come on, that was funny. I'm going to trinkle it in little bits at a time, sprinkle it in. Maybe I'll stick with sprinkle because that might be a better way to avoid saying tinkle, because that is not the word I was looking for. All right, so our relationship with food. So we're going to really touch on principle 3. So we mentioned 3 principles yesterday, and that was the third one is your relationship with food is a great teacher. Okay? And so that's the one we're going to kind of work on today, and how it carries over into mindset and how that stinking thinking was developed, what it is, and how we can start to change those concepts around food. And by just doing these shifts in that concept, how that can greatly change your health, your overall health, and how important it all is together. So, if your relationship is your greatest teacher, what is it teaching you? Well, there are 2 aspects within your relationship with your food. There's the biological aspect and the psychological aspect. So there's a biological response as to why you are responding and acting the way you are with food, and there's a psychological component as to why you are reacting and eating the way you're eating, and reacting to food the way you're reacting to food. All right, so there's those 2 together. That's the mind and the body working together. Okay, and we are at the very end. We're going to touch on that soul, that last bit, which is kind of the emotional. It kind of goes together, but we won't get in that right now. All right, so jumping forward, biology. We're going to start with biology. Hi, Allie. How are you doing? Drop an emoji. Show me how you're doing today. Just a reminder, I love hearts. Pick any color. And if you are not feeling heart mood, pick another emoji that kind of lets me know so I can know where you're at. Check in. Teachers checking in. But I don't want this just to be a teaching session. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Coaching is much more where I want this week to be along. I'm here to walk alongside you, to assist you, to give you information, but also, it's for you guys to do the work as well. And so if you have any questions that come up, please feel free to ask. Just drop in the comments. There is a really big delay between what I'm saying and what you guys hear, and then when you respond, when I actually see it come up on my screen. So just give it that little bit of grace. That's the technology going up to space and back, and then back up to space and back to me. So we're going to give it some grace, and we're going to work through it, right? All right, so I was just we're talking about the relationship with food is our great teacher, and that there are 2 different components of that. So there's the biological aspect and the psychological aspect, all right? So those are the mind and the body and how it relates to food. So first off, we're going to start with biology. If you don't have a pen and paper, I suggest you get one. You don't necessarily need it right now unless you want to take notes on this, because it's good to write things down. Fun teacher fact, the writing, the actual using that movement, and the visualization of seeing it obviously is much more likely to stick with you. However, you don't have to write all this down, but you will need a piece of paper and pen in a little bit. So if you want to grab it now, feel free, or I'll give you a minute later on if you don't already have one. So let's dive into the biology side. All right. So what are some things biologically that might be causing your relationship with food? So the first one is if you are getting too low of calories, right? So this is like the big push, right? If you eat less and work out more, you'll lose weight. I'm sure everyone's heard that. Drop an emoji or comment if you've heard that. If you eat less and work out more, you're going to lose weight. Anybody heard that one before? Right? If it worked, 100% guaranteed if it worked, we wouldn't still be trying to lose weight. Right? Because I'm going to take it, well, let's step back 1 minute. I'm going to go off of the benefit of the doubt that people know what they need to do. Okay? You know what you need to do to be healthier, to lose weight, to eat healthy. Like, I give humans the benefit of the doubt that we know this stuff. We really do. And so that's where this stinking thinking plays a big role. Okay? And so biologically, you might be having a biological response. You're guaranteed to have a biological response to food. But one of the reasons is the too low of calorie intake. So everybody's body is designed differently. We touched on that yesterday, right? If you are getting too few amount of calories for your body size, metabolism, all that kind of jazz, if you're getting too few calories for your body, it's going to enter what's called the starvation mode. Starvation mode basically turns on the mechanisms within your body that says, oh crap, we're starving. Like legit, like, I like to make things simple. So this is what happens. Not enough food. Your body biologically goes, oh crap, we're not getting enough calories. Starvation mode is turned on. It's like a light switch. Bloop. When your body goes into that starvation mode, when that light switch goes on, right? You know what happens? Your metabolism slows down. Guaranteed. Because what your body has figured out is, oh snap, this is the only amount of food we're getting. We better start holding on to it. And that's when your body starts to store more fat. Because what is fat? Fat is your body's way of preparing for the winter, preparing for the season when the crops aren't growing. So we touched on this yesterday as well, right? We hit this transition. We're in a different society and our bodies haven't caught up, because if you look at the 1900s, right, the beginning of the 1900s, the industrial age, all these things started happening. Food started, you can go research how food has progressed through this, but for the most of us, we kind of understand, like, there's been this huge shift in food, right? It's much more convenient, much more available, massively processed, massively distributed, right? That happened like this. Technology has jumped exponentially quick, like just super fast. If you don't use the word exponentially, super fast, right? From in the last 100 or so years. That being said, biologically, our bodies have not navigated that yet, right? Do the light switch sound again. I don't even remember which one I used. Well, this is the problem of being like improv and theater world, right? And make sound effects and working with kids. So that's starvation mode. So you're triggering a starvation mode if you're getting too few calories. So yes, there is a possibility of losing weight when you get into a caloric deficiency. There is a science to that formula, okay? But if you're getting too few of calories, then you will go into starvation mode. And when you're in starvation mode, your body's going to store it. It's guaranteed. Simple. So that's one of the biological reasons. Number 2, fear of macros. So macronutrients are the ones that we need large quantities of. So we have what are called phytonutrients. They're the little small guys that we might need a little bit here and there. And there's like thousands of those different types of nutrients out there. They're the ones that, you hear as minerals and vitamins and all that kind of stuff, right? Those are our phytonutrients. They're small little amounts that we need, trace amounts that are naturally in fruits and vegetables and other things, because other things eat fruits and vegetables and then we eat them. So, but your macronutrients, these are your big nutrients, right? These are your fats, your carbs, your protein, and water. So water in and of itself is its own macronutrient because we need a ton of it because we're over 70% water. That's what our body's made of. So we need a lot of water. But when you have a fear of macros, so I'm going to touch on all 4 of these really simply, really quickly. If you're afraid of water, some people are afraid of water because they don't like the way it tastes or they feel like it's going to make them bloated, right? So that's one of the fears, fear of water. The other one is fear of protein. If I eat too much protein, I'm going to end up looking like a muscle builder, and I don't want all that bulk. I don't want to be just all masculine and bulky, which most of the time not a male one, more towards females, but it is. It's a fear of protein. Like, I'm afraid I'm going to end up like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I don't want to look like him, so I'm afraid of eating a lot of protein. Another one is carbs, which I'm pretty sure, Tony, you mentioned this in your video. We're in a carb-feared society right now, right? That's what media is pushing. Carbs are terrible, right? Low carb, low carb, low carb. Carbohydrates. I don't want to be sluggish. I don't want to be overweight. I don't want to, like, sugar's terrible. Like, that's a fear of carbs, right? And that's kind of the stage we're in right now. And they're like hitting every possible fear pain point around weight right now to sell that mindset. The other one is fear of macros. So this is the one that us who went through the 80s and 90s, we were in that season of fear of fat. So like I mentioned yesterday, low fat, low fat, low fat, low fat ice cream, low fat milk, low fat this, low fat that, right? Do you know what they ended up replacing all that fat with? Sugar. Yay us. So we became sugar addicted. So with the fear of fat, because that happens, side note, when you skim milk and you take all the fat off of milk, you end up with the byproduct of sugar, increased sugar in it. So yes, so fear of fat, because fat is fat. And if I eat fat, I'm going to have fat in my body. Right? So those are the 4 fears of macronutrients. And how does this biologically affect your body? When you are in an imbalance of macros, when you are not getting the right amount of macronutrients in your body, guess what? Your body's going to know biologically, I'm not getting what I need. And then you're going to want to eat more. Like I said, I love to make this simple, but yes. So, sugar, yep. Chemicals, yep. They definitely used a lot of chemicals when they replaced the fat. All that like fat-free butter that's not butter. And what is it if it's not butter, right? Like, oh yeah, all the stuff that was around in the 80s and 90s. Like, some of that stuff is just super scary when you think about it, right? So, keto. Keto? Do you mean keto or you mean keto? It says I hato kato, but I don't know what that means. Tony, if you can clarify that. I'm translating as I hate keto, but I might be completely off. So you clarify that and I'm going to keep going. All right. So the fear of the macros, right, can lead to an imbalance in your system. And when you're imbalanced biologically with your macros that you need, your body's going to want to eat more. Yes. Okay. Keto. Yep. Okay. Yes. Keto. So let's do another little caveat on keto. Keto was designed by a father whose daughter had a seizure disorder. That is what keto was designed for. It was not designed as a weight loss program. It got turned into a weight loss program because they realized when you're in a state of ketosis, you're burning fat. However, it is not sustainable and it is not healthy to be in that state all the time. And so I am not a proponent of any kind of diet, and we'll get more into that later on. But today I want to really touch on the mindset and your relationship with food, okay? So I am not a proponent of keto either. It works short term because your body is burning fat, but there was an actual medical reason why the daughter needed to be in this state of ketosis forever. And it's because she had a seizure disorder that was being triggered by sugars and other things that were within her. Like it's a total like deep dive into chemistry if you go that way. But yeah, so I'm not a proponent of keto either. I am all about your balance of macros. Okay. So if you have a fear of a macro, you're going to put yourself into an imbalance, and your body is going to try to figure out that balance. And that could cause binge eating and stuff like that, right? Overeating, that sense of yesterday we were talking about willpower, right? Like they push willpower. Well, if you're not eating carbs and all you want to do is frickin' eat a loaf of bread and you do, and then you feel guilty about it, you've now put yourself in this like cycle, right? Anybody been there? Right? And so I'm so grateful they finally got off of their fat kick, because I have felt a huge shift in my health when I started adding healthy fats. And this was a few years ago that I started doing that. But man, that was a big shift from going from a low fat society and stepping away from that in my adulthood and realizing to take hold of my health in my own hands and not listening to the media. So that's why you guys are here. I'm so proud of you. Okay. So those are the main biological ones that people end up putting themselves in. And so that's your body's relationship with food. It's telling you, right? Biologically, we have a problem, right? Okay. So the other relationship teacher side is the psychology, all right? So your relationship. So this is definitely that stinking thinking. So the other two were society induced almost, right? Like things that society has been telling us to do. Eat less food and be afraid of one of these macros. And so that's a stinking thinking. And when you eradicate those stinking thinking, you can start to listen to what your body is actually saying. And now we're going to get into the psychology. And so the psychology, this part is much deeper. And it can come from listening to your parents, listening to other adults, right, growing up. So one of the things, that was definitely modeled that I heard a lot of was like, oh, I need to go on another diet. I've been eating too much. There's that one. I'm trying to think of other, of course, I'm blanking right now. But so let's do this. You drop in the line some of the comments you heard about food when you were growing up, or friends have said or something like that, right? So let's do that. I'm going to grab a drink, and then I'm going to jump into the 4 different psychological stinking thinkings that we're going to get over. And it's not going to happen that fast, I promise you. But you can definitely, the beautiful part is you can take control of it. All right. So this one, speaking of control, it's a funny little segment there. When you feel like you need to control everything, right? And so controlling your thoughts and controlling everything around you are different mindsets. So I do want to differentiate. That's why I laughed at myself for saying that word right before I jumped into this one. Controlling your thoughts is empowering. Trying to control everything around you is anxiety. It's the underlying aspect of anxiety. It doesn't mean you have generalized anxiety disorder and you need to go see a therapist or anything like that. You can if you feel like you need to. But just because you have that need to control everything doesn't mean you have an anxiety disorder. It's just something in you is fearful, right? You want, or it could be perfectionism. Like you want everything to be perfect, so you have to do it because you're the one who's going to do it right. Or it could be having grown up in an environment that was very unstable childhoods, moving around a lot, not knowing who was coming in and out, not knowing where your next meal was. Those kind of environments when you're a child can really cause someone when they become an adult to really want to like have a say and an order about everything, because now you're an adult and you get to have that control, right? And so that controlling can also come over into food. And this is when you get super restrictive, super overly thoughtful. I don't want to say obsessed because I don't like that word. But you can, where you're just consumed by having to control. Think of it like a stretch band, right? Like a rubber band that's just like trying to wrap itself around the whole world. Tiny little rubber band just trying to hold the whole world, right? What's going to happen when the band reaches its max? It's going to snap back, right? And so that's where food can trigger sometimes that impulsivity, that like loss of control, like around food. Food can be a big trigger for that, because that pulls, like that's a part of your biological absolute need, and your body likes to be balanced. Okay, so I'm going to let you think about that. Your body likes to be balanced. So that one's a writer downer. If you have paper right there, that one you need to write down for sure. Your body likes to be balanced. It is a whole system. Every single system within your body is designed around a balance of at least one or two molecules. I was raised on a very unhealthy food, margarine, processed foods, comfort foods, foods from very plentiful and rich at holidays. Yes. And food is such a trigger. It can be, right? Yeah, definitely. Food can definitely be a big trigger. As a vegan, everyone asks, how do you get your proteins? Apparently, they don't understand that God put lots of proteins in plants too. Yes, he did. Yes, there are lots of proteins in plants, and that's another thing that people aren't 100% taught. We're taught protein is meat and, that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, so those are good thoughts right there that have come up that are also around this misconception of food. And all right, so that's the controlling, and food can be a trigger to rebalance you back into a state, and that could lead to overeating, binge eating, especially like on like foods that you enjoyed as a kid, that kind of thing, right? So next one. All right, so next psychological stinking thinking, and this one's not so much, it's not so much the fact that of what it is, and it's not so much of a word processing thought. It's just a situation and the way that you're approaching it. So it is challenges in life. All right. And so if you are having so we were talking about this yesterday, right? If you're having a stressful situation with your spouse and you're fighting, right? Or you're having a financial burden, or you're even having a health issue, if you're having a health crisis, a weight crisis, like even in the state of feeling like you are overweight could even be the challenge in and itself that's causing you to have a negative relationship with food. And so when you are in this challenging situation in life, what happens? We get into that stress response. So we talked about the stress response yesterday, right? And when we get into a stress response and we turn to food, listen to this, right? When you are stress eating, or you're eating like because you're stressed out and you don't know what to do, and so you just open the bag of Doritos and start chowing down on Doritos, or the bowl of chocolate ice cream, or whatever your go-to thing is, right? Mac and cheese. A lot of people like mac and cheese because it's a comfort food. When you start to eat, right? Eventually what happens is your stomach gets full, and that full, so you're in your stress response. And when you're in your stress response, that's that flight or fight condition, right? But once your stomach is full, your body biologically triggers your mind and says, wait, whoa, we have all this food here. We need to get into a relaxation stage so that we can digest it. It's like, I don't know why all of a sudden there's this food here because we're over here stressed, but there's food here. So now we need to digest it. And this is where we're talking about our bodies being amazing. Bam, your body stops being stressed out. It hits this state of relaxation. And that's where you get that, I need to chill on the couch. I need to take a nap. So you see this at Thanksgiving. Everyone talks about tryptophan, but it really is the fact that you're overeating and you're automatically putting yourself into this relaxation state. That can become habit forming. Okay? So this is that stinking thinking. I'm super stressed out. I'm just going to eat something. And you might not be even consciously aware, but subconsciously, your body knows that when you are stressed out, if you eat a lot of food, you will automatically get put into a state of relaxation. And this can become habit forming for your method of relaxing. It's a big one, right? So, challenges in life leading to eating, because that eating can lead your body to finally relax. It's a big one right there that a lot of people go to and aren't even consciously aware of why they are. They might be aware like, oh, I eat when I'm stressed, but they're not even aware why they're eating when they're stressed. And it's because of that relaxation component. All right, so this one right here, this is a huge one. Oh my gosh, I see it and hear it all the time. This is like the stinking thinking out there. Food is the enemy. No, it's not. But have you heard that? Have you heard that? Drop an emoji, drop a comment. Maybe not in those words. Maybe you haven't heard it as food is the enemy per se, right? But this is the actual mindset. This is what's being ingrained in people's heads. This is the parent that told you, sweetie, I don't think you need to have another one of those. You really need to mind what you're eating. That's not good for you. It comes down to these are bad foods. If you're eating them, you're bad. And these are good foods. This is where you should be eating. This is the good stuff, right? It's I am overweight because food made me fat and I can't stand being fat and it's food's fault. Food is the problem. We all know that if we just could stop eating food, we'd stop being fat, right? So these are all just like the little thought bubbles. Just think of like little thought bubbles that people are thinking and saying, right? The whole concept of I can't. That whole statement. I can't eat that. I can't have that. I can't, right? This is where you start to get the stress of it's the holidays and there's going to be a lot of food. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? There's going to be tons of food there. I can't eat it. And it's all going to be out there. And it's going to be so easy for me to want to eat. It's going to be a huge temptation. And now your holiday has turned into a stressful event instead of an enjoyment, right? Going out to eat a dinner. Oh, my friends picked this restaurant and they're going to want to have the full-on margaritas and the nachos. And I'm on this diet right now and I can't do that, right? Yep. So that's the food is enemy. I can't, right? So this comes down to like, think of like the Weight Watchers. Just that term in and of itself, Weight Watcher. Like you're watching your weight. Like you're going to watch it. Why? I'm going to watch what I'm eating. I'm going to watch my scale. I'm going to watch this. I'm going to, all of this because if I go over this, I can't eat more than this and I can't have the scale rise more than that, right? It's just this whole food is the enemy and I have to control it. So these kind of all tie together. But does that make sense to everybody? Where that food is the enemy phrase could possibly be a stinking thinking. And does anybody have what you think, why Why would that concept of food is the enemy be a part of the problem with people's health and relationship with food? What's your thoughts on eating food too fast? That's probably my one bad food habit. We're going to dive more into that one tomorrow for sure. But yeah, it definitely has a biological and psychological effect on your eating. It's not necessarily a stinking thinking. We'll touch on it more again, but yeah, it definitely the rate that you eat your food definitely has an effect biologically and psychologically on your eating habits and your relationship with food, for sure. Yes, I eat too fast as well. Yep, it is a big habit, and like I said, we're going to dive more into that one tomorrow. But let me know what you think about the food is enemy. Have you heard that one? Or have you heard a component or a similar phrasing or ideology, so to speak, around food being the enemy? Food is what's causing the problems. No? Is everyone good on that one? I'm surprised, because that's one I hear all the time. But maybe not in this group, which would be cool. So let me know. Have you heard food is the enemy, or that kind of, I can't eat this, I can't have that? Yes, I've felt that all my life, really. Okay, there we go. Yep. So you're not alone, and it's not your fault. All right? You're not alone, and it's not your fault. That one, right, like I said, is one of the biggest things I hear all the time. And so think of, like the term junk food, right? Junk food in and of itself gives that sense of that food is, which there is some truth to that. But like I said, I believe humans, we know what we should be eating and what we shouldn't be eating. The concept here is food is the enemy. It can carry over. Your brain doesn't necessarily carry it as much as we like to think it does. It sees, if you are thinking of that food as bad, it still can carry over into when we do make a really good meal. Okay? And the reason why that can carry over is if we're trying to eat something we don't like. So, if you have grown up eating high processed foods and you're trying to shift over into eating kale salads, you might have a little bit of a taste barrier to try to, to change. There can be a lot in that. There can be gut health issues. There can be inflammation and yeast. There's a whole lot of microorganisms that play into that because your body has developed an internal system based off of what you've been giving it, right? And so there also is like this detoxing stage where you can start to get headaches because you're like eradicating the bad things. So there's a lot into that. And I'm not going to dive into that today. But when we have that concept of bad foods and good foods, junk food and healthy food, and we think on it too much, like there are foods that I choose. So this is what I do, okay? So I'm going to let you know what I do when it comes to food. I'm choosing this meal. I'm choosing this. That is putting that empowerment statement in myself, and it has nothing to do with the food itself. I'm choosing to eat this because I like it. I'm choosing because it makes me feel better. I'm choosing because I know right now I'm low in iron, right? So that is the thought process that I've started to create in myself when I start to eat food, right? And I love chocolate, so you're not getting chocolate out of my diet. You can try to handcuff me and it's just not going to happen. I'm not letting go of chocolate. But there's other foods that I'm not so attached to. And I know when I go some places if I get to have a choice, then I'm going to make a healthier choice, but in a way that I feel empowered. Not because I have to, not because I can't have that. It's because I know I feel better when I eat this, right? And so there's that empowerment. And it's this super small shift. So when we stop seeing the food as the enemy, right, we start to see food as what nourishes our body. When we start to see food as what we need. So coming back to that junk food concept, Anne-Marie, I don't need a Snickers bar. Like, I like chocolate, but I don't need a Snickers bar because there's other things in there that I don't want in my body. Same thing with like potato chips or soda, right? There's stuff in there that's not food. Like, they are chemical products that I don't want to put in my body. And yes, I still like the taste of Cool Ranch, or what is it? Cool Ranch, right? Doritos? I don't know. I haven't had them forever. I still like the way they taste. I still liked Funyuns, and I never understood why I liked Funyuns as a kid, because I really didn't like onions at all growing up, but I liked Funyuns, and it's like the most awful thing in the world, because it's like chemically flavored air. I don't know. Right? So, but it's because, as we spoke to yesterday, scientists are sitting in laboratories trying to get these foods to look and taste the way that we want them to, so that we will eat them. But it's, again, developed in a laboratory. It's not food. And so that was one of the things that I shifted in myself is, yeah, they taste good, but that's not food. A Twizzler is not food. It is red dyed sugar thing. Like, that's not food. Did it change the way I liked about eating it? Like, no, it still tasted good, but I know now, like, especially I have a sensitivity to red dye, but I'm going to get a headache if I eat it. Like, if I really want a headache, go for it, Sasha, but probably not the best choice, you know? You're going to pay for it for me. Like, my body's very sensitive. But that also grew out of a lot of misconceptions. Like I said, the low-fat diet really, really did its number on my body growing up, and I'm paying for that now. So food is not our enemy. Food is nourishing. And when you start to realize that and empower yourself with, it seems like the smallest thing, saying, I'm choosing to eat this over I can't have that, but it makes a huge difference, because when we are in a stressful situation, when we are in a situation where our body feels like it's under attack, we're not going to assimilate and digest and accept the food the best way. So you could eat the most amazingly nutritious kale, cashew, and peppers, and all these like amazing colorful varieties of different proteins, peas, and all this stuff in this beautiful pile of wonderfully macro and micronutrients dish, right? It could be the most amazingly designed plate. But if you don't like the taste of kale and you don't like the texture of peas, you are psychologically setting yourself up to think that you're poisoning yourself. That's how powerful the mind is in our relationship with food. And you might actually get more out of eating the double cheeseburger in that mindset if you're really enjoying that double cheeseburger. Isn't that crazy? Because your body is in this state over here. You feel like you're forcing yourself to eat something, and you're not even going to get the nutrition out of it. So when we have to start seeing food, and there's a way to work through that and to start to get that nutrition into your diet and all that stuff, and we're going to talk about that more later on this week. But for today It's understanding that food is not the enemy. Food is nutrition. So food is medicine. Yep. Let thy food be thy medicine, right? Headaches. Definitely a pain point to stop a food. Yes. Right. Those ones are pretty quick for me. So it's aspartame, any kind of artificial sweeteners, especially aspartame, is an automatic headache, like within 5 minutes of drinking it. And then red dye is another one. And so again, neither one of those are food. So we're going to point that out. Anything that has aspartame in it, so that's your Diet Cokes, your diet drinks, right? And like Lucky Charms and Fruit Loops and Twizzlers have red dye, right? There's a lot of stuff in there that aren't actually food. So if you treat yourself to that, you're not actually eating food in that. So there can be a lot of negative repercussions for that, but kind of starting to separate junk food and actually turn junk food category into non-real food items and then food items, right? Like instead of calling it junk food, call it non-food items. Like one of the funny things that I say when I'm at the movie theater, because it's the only time we're like ever around soda, which we haven't been in a movie theater in a long time now, right? But when we're there's this advertisement where the whole screen is covered with ice cubes. And then all of a sudden this like Coke starts pouring down, and it's supposed to like be like, don't forget to go to your refreshment station and get your Coke, you know? And I'm like, ooh, look at all that wonderful car engine cleaner. Because in my head, and mind you, I liked the taste of Coke. Like I did. I grew up and we would have a Coke every once in a while, and I enjoyed the way Coke tastes. But now I've trained myself, when I see Coke, I see car engine cleaner, because that's actually what it's good for. If you have a cruddy, like oily car engine and you want to get it clean and sparkly or whatever, Coca-Cola is amazing at that. I don't want to put that in my stomach anymore now that I know that it's better at cleaning the car engine than it actually is as a food item. And once I started to see that, additives are triggers. Yes. All the additives, those things are not food. They have been placed into food items. They have been placed into food items and sold as food. But a lot of these products and these additives and all the stuff that are still in America are banned in many other countries. So it's great for cleaning the toilet too. No kidding. Yeah, it's a great erosive. And just imagine if you can clean your car engine and you can clean your toilet with it, you might not want to put it in your stomach. And so that's where that mind shift has happened for me. So I no longer call things junk food because it's not food. Whereas like brownies, like homemade brownies and homemade cookies, I've learned how to make vegan, gluten-free recipes that actually taste really good. But you don't have to go to that extreme unless you want to, unless you need to, right? I will eat a lot of brownies if I want to. Like I can put flax in it. You can make them with sweet potatoes. I know that's one thing Tony has mentioned, using sweet potatoes. You can use pumpkin. Like there's a lot of great ways where you're actually putting in good nutrients into these sweet little dishes and stuff. And that's actually food. So a chocolate brownie made with sweet potatoes is food, whereas Twizzler, it's not food, and it's not junk food. It's literally just not food in my head. So that's the way that I've done it. So food is not the enemy. And so we have to eradicate that I can't and change it into I'm choosing, and having that empowerment, of that phrase. All right. So last one. All right. We're on our last one here of our stinking thinking concepts that show us our relationship with food. Emotional eating is wrong. Right? That is the stinking thinking. There you go. Don't call it junk food. It's just not food. Yep. There you go. You heard it here. It's just not food. All right. So, emotional eating is wrong. Wah, wah, wah. Here's another stinking thinking concept that is in our psychology aspect, right? We have grown up since we were a baby to put food and emotion together. All right? Think of it this way. You have a little newborn baby, which I have a lot of friends who are having newborn babies. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's babies all in my newsfeed right now. It's crazy. Or pregnant women. But anywho, I digress. So you have this little newborn baby and you start to get hunger pains. And you start crying because you can't do anything yet but cry and poop and eat, right? And sleep. So you're like, I don't like this feeling. So I'm going to say, wah, right? And so then mom comes along or dad and we're like, oh, you haven't eaten in a while. Let's give you some food. And then you're being held, you're being talked to, you get the smell of your mom or your dad, you're getting that attention, and it all comes around the sensation of eating too. And you're like, this is the best feeling in the world. And then you get into that relaxation state because your belly gets full. I don't know if you guys have seen like the little, or if you've had a kid, you had the little like milk drunk baby pictures or whatever. And so the baby's just like that. I'm in the best state of my life because you've just now felt loved. You've felt attention. You've gotten your needs met. Your belly's full. You're completely relaxed, right? We are designed from the get-go to want to eat food and to have that emotion around it, right? That can get changed. And one of those is that now we're told, don't eat emotionally. Don't have emotions when you're eating. You need to eat healthy. You need to eat this and this and this. And, this is when we get back into what they're saying is healthy, which could be, we got to not eat any carbohydrates because they're not healthy, right? And so now you're like into this stinking thinking of, oh my gosh, now I can't eat this and I can't eat that. And this is terrible for me. And if I'm feeling emotional, I can't eat either. But that's not right. It's a stinking way of thinking because we are emotional humans. And so what we need to do is we need to embrace those emotions. So one of the big things we do as humans is we celebrate with food, right? So holidays is food. When we've had a bad day, we're like, dude, I need to go get a drink and have some of my favorite food. You need to come there and I'm going to vent and we're going to have this conversation. But then you may feel guilty about doing that later on. You're like, oh, I shouldn't have had that, right? And then that comes with the guilt and the shame. Allowing yourself to be emotional and enjoy food is not a crime, okay? Allowing yourself to be emotional and enjoy food is not a crime. However, if you realize your only go-to for an emotional outlet has become food, right? If the only outlet, the only support you have for your emotions is food, then you've gotten yourself into a place where you need to find other ways to work through those emotions. All right? It's not saying you're bad and you're in a horrible state. It's saying it's like we said, your relationship with food is a great teacher. So this is teaching you that you have some emotional things that need to be worked out, right? And this comes back to, comfort food. And having comfort food occasionally is a good thing. Like, it's not a bad thing. Like, to be like, oh, I've had a rough day. I just want my mom's mac and cheese. And so I'm going to go make, or my grandma's recipe or whatever, I'm going to go make myself my grandma's mac and cheese, and I'm going to enjoy this because I remember whenever I made this with my grandma, all the funny stories she would tell me, and so on and so forth, right? Or, whatever relationship instance of that. It's okay, because that was a way to comfort you in a time that you needed some comfort. If it is your only turn to, if it is alcohol or comfort food or binge food, right? Like we talked about earlier with the stress eating is biologically putting yourself in a relaxation. If you are only going for food for emotional care, right? If that's the only outlet you have, that's when it becomes problematic. And it's not because of you being bad, it's because it's teaching you that there is something missing in your emotional support system. So this is going back to that infant, right? That infant got hugged, got attention, right? So is there something missing in that sense? Are you not emotionally safe to have a conversation with somebody? Are you feeling like maybe you've lost your voice and you're not able to show up and be authentically you? Are you, like right now, I know a lot of people with COVID who are extroverts and huggers, and they're like, I am missing my hugs. This is not okay. A lot of them are turning to food, and it's a correlation. They are missing that hugs that they normally get as an extrovert going out in the world, and they're not getting it right now. And they're sitting there going, I don't know why I'm eating so much. I just want a hug. Yep, you're right. You do, and your food is hugging you right now. Let's see. Today is Taco Tuesday. It is Taco Tuesday. Eat your tacos and enjoy them. I hate hugs. I'm totally okay. Yeah, and I know people that do, And I had a best friend in high school who did not like to be hugged at all. So she did not like to be touched at all. And it was really funny because her dad was like this big Italian chef who would make comfort food all the time, and he was just like, come in, eat all your food, give hugs, and she was just like, don't touch me, nobody touch me. I was like, wow, I don't understand, but okay. And my mom's not a big hugger either, so you're not alone, all right? But I was just using that example because I've seen it. A lot of my friends who are big huggers are really feeling it right now in COVID. And they're also struggling with food, and they don't understand the correlation. But you can't make a horse drink, right? You can lead it to water, but you can't make him drink. So you're here, and you get to learn this awesome stuff. So that could be a way your body is teaching you, okay? So your relationship with food is a great teacher, right? Shift that mindset of empowerment, of not, I can't have that, to I'm choosing to eat this, right? Macros are all important. All four of those, water, protein, carbs, and fats, all four of those are essential. Your body needs all four of those. There's a different, we'll talk about this more tomorrow, but there's obviously different proportions and from different sources. Like Tony mentioned, vegetables carry protein, right? So there's different ways of getting those macronutrients than just the general populace is telling you. But all four of those are absolutely essential for your body, right? The stress eating could be looking for relaxation, right? Your body might be looking to relax from a stressful situation, finding a way to relax and not turning to food. Emotional eating, comforting yourself when you're overly emotional all the time, could be a teaching point of, is there something missing, right? Am I missing a way that I need to express myself or feel loved, or what's missing? It might be trying to fill a hole, right? And then that controlling learning to accept the things that you can change, right? Accept what you can change, accept there's some things you can't change, and that will kind of help to start balance that need to control your food, which might lead to this inability to control what you're eating because your body is trying to find that balance. So your body is in constant search for balance. Okay? Your body is in constant search for balance. Too low of calories goes into starvation mode. There's that chick. Is that the sound I made, Tony, earlier? The chick. I don't know if that was the same one or not. Right? So if you're too low of your calories, your body will go into starvation mode, which will mean it will start storing fat and slowing your metabolism. Sunday gravy is what I make and hug those who come to partake in dinner. It's an Italian thing. Yep, I know. That's what I'm saying. Her dad was Italian.